The breaking point. The crystalline spires of New Alexandria Station caught the light of 3 different suns, creating a cascade of colors that would have been breathtaking if Ambassador Sarah Chen hadn't been fighting to save humanity's place among the stars. She stood before the Galactic Alliance's High Council, her dark eyes fixed on the assembled representatives of over 200 spacefaring civilizations. "You fear what you don't understand," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And what you don't understand is that adaptation isn't a threat, it's survival." High Counselor Exiled, an entity composed of shifting plasma contained within an environmental suit, moved forward. "Adaptation. Is that what you call the mining incident on Proxima VI? Or perhaps the quantum acceleration project that your species somehow completed in 1/10 the projected time?" Sarah fought back a surge of frustration. The mining incident had saved thousands of lives when humans modified Alliance mining protocols to prevent a catastrophic collapse. The quantum acceleration project had revolutionized faster-than-light travel, making it accessible to dozens of developing civilizations. But the Alliance saw only the pattern they feared: humans changing things, moving too fast, thinking differently. "We solve problems," Sarah countered. "We see challenges and find ways around them. How is that threatening?" "It is not the solutions that concern us," came the melodic voice of Council Member Eterna, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. "It is the speed at which your species implements change. The psychological profiles are clear. Humans don't just adapt, they thrive on upheaval. You seek it out, create it, even." Sarah noticed movement in the gallery. Admiral James Chen, her father, watched from the observation deck, his weathered face showing concern. He had warned her this might happen, that the Alliance's fear had grown too deep. "The Council has reached its decision," Exiled announced. "Humanity's membership in the Galactic Alliance is hereby suspended. All human vessels and personnel must return to their solar system within 30 standard days. A containment field will be established to ensure compliance." "You're making a mistake," Sarah's words cut through the murmuring chamber. "There are threats out there that none of us can face alone. The void storms are expanding. The dark matter cascade is accelerating. You need our ability to adapt, to think differently." "What we need is stability," Eterna responded. "Your species brings chaos wherever you go. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have learned restraint. We don't have centuries." Sarah's composure finally cracked. "The void storms will reach Alliance space within decades. We've shown you the data. Data you gathered using unauthorized modifications to our sensor arrays," Exiled pointed out. "This meeting is concluded." As Sarah turned to leave, she caught sight of Junior Delegate Kiravash, one of the few Alliance members who had consistently supported humanity. The young Nexian's bioluminescent patterns showed patterns of distress and apology. Back aboard the Earth vessel Hyperion, Sarah found her father waiting in the ship's strategy room. The walls displayed real-time data from across human space, ships already beginning their reluctant journey home, research stations being dismantled, joint projects being abandoned. "They'll realize their mistake," Admiral Chen said, studying the displays. "But we can't wait for that to happen." Sarah looked at her father. "You knew this was coming. You've been preparing for it." The Admiral nodded, activating a secure holographic display. "Operation Shadowfall. While the Alliance was debating our fate, we've been building, mining, developing technologies they never imagined. They think they're containing us." A hint of a smile crossed his face. "They're giving us exactly what we need. Time to work without their restrictions." "The containment field," Sarah began, "will be the biggest mistake they've ever made," her father finished. "They think they're locking us in. What they're really doing is locking themselves out while we prepare for what's coming." Sarah studied the classified data scrolling past. Secret shipyards, underground research facilities, technological innovations that would have horrified the Alliance's conservative scientists. "We're not going to just sit quietly in timeout, are we?" No, Admiral Chen confirmed. When the void storms come, when the Alliance faces something their protocols and procedures can't handle, they'll remember why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our inability to accept limitations, Sarah finished, finally understanding the full scope of what her father and others had been planning. The Alliance thought they were caging a dangerous animal. Instead, they were giving humanity exactly what it needed, a challenge to overcome. As the Hyperion began its journey back to Earth, Sarah watched the glittering expanse of Alliance space recede. They thought this was an ending. But in typical human fashion, they would make it a beginning instead. The containment field would go up in 30 days, and humanity would use every second of that time to prepare. Not for war, not for revenge, but for the moment when the galaxy would need what only humans could provide: the ability to look at the impossible and see an opportunity. Shadow Protocol. 10 years into humanity's exile, the Helios Research Complex sprawled beneath the Martian surface like a giant technological spider web. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the central laboratory, watching as her team tested their latest breakthrough, a system that could theoretically manipulate the quantum fabric of space itself. Test sequence initiating, announced Dr. Marcus Wong, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. The machine before them, a twisted array of crystalline structures and pulsing energy conduits, hummed to life. In the center, a sphere of pure darkness formed, a controlled miniature void storm. Maya checked the readings on her neural interface. Containment field holding at 98% efficiency. That's 3 times better than last month's test. The door slid open, admitting Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen, the same woman who had once stood before the Alliance Council. A decade had added silver to her hair, but hadn't diminished her determination. "Show me," she commanded. Maya gestured to the swirling void. "We finally cracked it. The Alliance always tried to block or deflect void storms. We're doing something they never considered. We're learning to speak their language." Sarah watched as the artificial storm responded to subtle adjustments from the research team, expanding and contracting on command. "Can we scale it up?" "That's where it gets interesting," Marcus chimed in, pulling up a new set of projections. "The underlying mathematics suggests this could work on any scale. We could potentially control entire void storm fronts." "And the power requirements?" Maya smiled. "That's where Project Helios comes in." "Dr. Yoshida, would you like to explain?" From her workstation, Dr. Kaori Yoshida activated a different display, showing a massive structure taking shape in high orbit around Mercury. Traditional fusion was never going to be enough. But by combining our quantum manipulation techniques with solar collection on an unprecedented scale, we're going to harvest the power of a star, Marcus finished, something the Alliance deemed impossible and therefore never attempted. Sarah studied the displays intently. "How long until it's operational?" 3 months for initial power generation, 6 for full capacity, Kaori reported. "But that's not all we've been working on." She transmitted a new set of files to Sarah's neural interface. The Admiral's eyes widened as she processed the information. "You've cracked quantum entanglement communication." Maya nodded. "The Alliance's containment field blocks conventional signals, but you can't block something that doesn't actually travel through space. We've already established contact with a handful of human ships that were stranded outside when the barrier went up. They've been busy too." Sarah walked around the void storm containment device, her mind clearly racing with possibilities. The Alliance thought isolation would stagnate us. Instead, we've advanced further in 10 years than we did in 50 years under Alliance restrictions, Marcus said. "Turns out humans are pretty good at solving problems when we don't have a committee of 100 different species debating every minor protocol change. But we're not doing this out of spite," Maya added quickly. "Everything we've developed, the void storm control, the stellar power collection, the quantum communications, it's all designed to help when the storms hit Alliance space. We could have focused on weapons, on ways to break through the containment field. Instead, we're preparing to save the people who exiled us. Sarah finished. That's going to confuse the hell out of them. She smiled slightly. Good. An alert pulsed through their neural interfaces. Corey's fingers flew across her controls. Speaking of the Alliance, long-range sensors are picking up something interesting. A void storm, bigger than any we've recorded. And it's headed straight for the Nexian sector. Sarah's expression hardened. The Nexians had been among humanity's few allies in the Alliance. How long? At current speeds, 8 months until first contact with Alliance space. Then we have 8 months to perfect all this. Sarah gestured to the various projects around them. Can we do it? Maya looked at her team, saw the determination in their eyes. The Alliance gave us an impossible timeline and overwhelming odds. She smiled. Sounds like business as usual for humanity. The artificial void storm pulsed in its containment field, a reminder of both the challenge ahead and humanity's unique approach to solving it. The Alliance had feared humanity's tendency to push boundaries and break rules. Soon, they would understand. Those traits weren't humanity's greatest liability. They were the galaxy's greatest hope. As the team returned to their work with renewed vigor, Maya caught Sarah studying the quantum communications display. Still no response from the Council, she asked. We've been sending warnings about the void storms for 3 years, Sarah replied. Through every back channel we could find. They either don't believe us or don't want to admit we might be right. Then I guess we'll have to show them instead. Maya turned back to her work, already calculating new improvements to their systems. After all, humans have always been better at showing than telling. In the depths of their Martian laboratory, humanity continued preparing for a threat the galaxy wasn't ready to face. The Alliance had meant to teach humanity a lesson in restraint. Instead, they were about to learn one themselves. Never underestimate a species that turns exile into opportunity. The Nexus event. First Counselor Kira Vash stood before the Alliance Emergency Council, her bioluminescent patterns flashing urgency patterns that hadn't been seen in the Council chambers for centuries. The holographic displays behind her showed real-time footage of the approaching void storm, a mass of swirling darkness larger than some solar systems. The evacuation of the outer colonies has begun, she reported, her translator struggling to keep the fear from her harmonic voice. But we estimate less than 60% of the population can be moved before the storm reaches critical systems. High Counselor Zexivith's plasma form churned with agitation. Our containment fields. Failing, reported Technical Administrator Aterna. The void storm is learning, adapting. Each time we strengthen our defenses, it finds new ways through. Almost as if it's intelligent. Kiravash finished, just as the humans warned us it would. The chamber fell silent. For 3 years, they had been receiving messages through various unofficial channels. Warnings about the true nature of the void storms. Offers of help, all dismissed as attempts by humanity to manipulate their way back into Alliance space. The humans are contained, Zexivith stated firmly. Their barrier remains intact, whatever messages you believe. A new alert flashed across the chamber's displays. In the space near the Nexian home system, dozens of ships had just appeared. Ships of clearly human design, but unlike anything the Alliance had ever encountered. Impossible, Aterna whispered. The containment field was never going to hold us forever, came a familiar voice. Sarah Chen's hologram materialized in the center of the chamber. Her hair was now fully silver, but her eyes held the same determination they had shown a decade ago. But breaking out wasn't the point. We stayed inside willingly, preparing for this moment. This is a violation of, as Exvith began. Your rules, your protocols. Sarah's hologram smiled. The void storm doesn't care about your rules, Counselor. But if you prefer to maintain them, we'll leave. After all, you made it very clear that humanity's help isn't wanted. Wait. Kiravash moved forward. First, explain how you breached the containment field. Our best scientists. Your scientists tried to block quantum entanglement, came a new voice as Dr. Maya Patel's hologram appeared. But you can't block something that doesn't actually travel through space. We've had ships and personnel outside the barrier this entire time, building and preparing. The council chamber erupted in chaos as the implications sank in. Not only had humanity found a way around their containment, they'd been operating freely for years without the Alliance even knowing. More importantly, Sarah continued over the noise. We've learned to communicate with the void storms, to understand them, and potentially to control them. On the displays, the human ships moved into formation around the approaching storm front. Strange energy patterns began to emerge, unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. They're not just cosmic phenomena, Maya explained. They're living things, in a sense, ancient and vast, but alive. You tried to fight them. We learned to talk to them. The void storm's advance began to slow, its chaotic patterns taking on a more ordered structure. The human ships pulsed with energy that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space itself. Impossible, Eterna whispered again, but this time with awe rather than denial. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our determination, Sarah said. It's our ability to look at the impossible and see an opportunity. You feared that about us. Now it might save your civilization. Exiled's plasma form had stilled completely, a sign of intense focus in his species. What are your terms? Terms? Sarah raised an eyebrow. We're not here to negotiate, counselor. We're here to help, whether you want it or not. Because that's what humans do. We solve problems, even for those who fear us. On the displays, more human ships were appearing. Not warships, but massive vessels clearly designed for evacuation and relief efforts. They began moving toward the threatened colonies, their quantum drives allowing them to cross vast distances almost instantly. The void storm will reach the Nexian system in 6 hours, Maya reported. We can deflect it, but we'll need coordination with your defense networks. Are you willing to work with us? Karavash stepped forward before Exiled could respond. Yes. The Nexian Empire formally requests humanity's assistance. Her bioluminescence showed patterns of both hope and shame. We should have listened sooner. The past doesn't matter now, Sarah said. What matters is the future, and humanity has some ideas about that too, assuming you're finally ready to listen. As the human ships engaged with the void storm, using technologies that defied Alliance understanding, the Council could only watch. They had exiled humanity out of fear of their adaptability, their tendency to change everything they touched. Now that same adaptability might be the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity's greatest strength wasn't just solving problems. It was solving them in ways no one else had ever imagined. Unconventional warfare. They're dancing with it, breathed Technical Administrator Eterna, her crystalline form vibrating with disbelief as she watched the human ships weave through the void storm's tendrils. The observation deck of the Nexian command station provided a panoramic view of the impossible scene unfolding before them. Where Alliance ships had tried to fight the storm with brute force, the human vessels moved in complex patterns, their energy signatures pulsing in rhythms that seemed to echo the storm's own frequencies. Dr. Maya Patel's voice came through the quantum comm system, clear despite the chaos surrounding them. The void storms aren't attacking our worlds. They're trying to communicate. Think of them as cosmic dancers looking for partners. We're just learning their steps. On the main display, the Helios Array, humanity's massive solar power collection system, channeled energy through the human fleet. But instead of weaponizing it, they were using it to create intricate patterns in space-time itself. Watch this, Maya said, excitement clear in her voice. A new set of frequencies pulsed from the human ships. The void storm's swirling darkness began to shift, its chaotic tendrils forming into more organized structures. It's responding, Karavash observed, her bioluminescence flickering with wonder. Because we're not trying to control it, Sarah Chen explained, standing beside the Alliance leaders. She had transferred to the station to coordinate efforts directly. We're offering it alternatives, showing it paths of least resistance that don't take it through populated systems. The Void Storm was indeed changing course, its vast bulk slowly turning away from the Nexian colonies. But it wasn't retreat, it was more like a river finding a new channel. Impossible, one of the Alliance scientists muttered. The computational power needed to calculate those space-time frequencies would be beyond any normal computer system, Maya agreed. That's why we don't use computers for it. We use these. She transmitted new data to the Alliance systems. Eterna's crystalline form sparkled with shock as she processed the information. These are human brainwave patterns. Turns out human consciousness is particularly good at recognizing and adapting to patterns, Sarah explained. Our neural networks can process quantum relationships in ways your AI systems can't. So we built interfaces that let our minds connect directly with the void storms. You're not just communicating with them, Kiravash realized. You're teaching them and learning from them, Maya added. Every interaction helps us understand them better. They're ancient beings, existing in multiple dimensions. What we see as destruction is just them trying to navigate our space-time. On the displays, more human ships were arriving. But these weren't military vessels. They were research ships, filled with scientists eager to study the phenomenon they'd spent a decade preparing for. This is why we succeed where others fail, Sarah said quietly. When you see a threat, you try to contain it. When we see a threat, we try to understand it. Sometimes that means taking risks. Sometimes it means breaking rules. But it also means finding solutions no one else would consider. The Void Storm had completely altered its course now, following the path the human ships had shown it. More importantly, its behavior was changing. The chaotic tendrils that had threatened whole worlds were becoming more ordered, more purposeful. We'd like to establish research stations along the storm's new trajectory, Maya proposed. With your permission, of course. There's so much we could learn from them. About space, time, even the nature of consciousness itself. The Alliance leaders exchanged looks. A decade ago, they had feared humanity's tendency to push boundaries and change everything they touched. Now they were watching those same traits save billions of lives. There will need to be protocols, Zexavith began. Safety measures. Of course, Sarah agreed. We're not asking for complete freedom. We're asking for partnership. The Alliance brings stability, order, and vast experience. Humanity brings innovation, adaptability, and new perspectives. Together we could reshape our understanding of the galaxy, Kiravash finished. Her bioluminescence showed patterns of hope and excitement that spread to others in the chamber. The rescue operations continued around them as the human ships guided the Void Storm into safer space. But something else was happening too. Alliance scientists were already engaging with their human counterparts, sharing data, asking questions. The barriers weren't just falling between humanity and the Void Storms. You know, Maya said to Sarah as they watched the collaboration unfold, they exiled us because they thought we brought chaos wherever we went. Sarah smiled. Maybe we do. But sometimes chaos is just the first step toward a better kind of order. In the viewport before them, human and Alliance ships worked together, teaching and learning, while an ancient cosmic force danced a new pattern through space. It wasn't the reunion anyone had expected, but it was exactly what both humanity and the galaxy needed. Full circle. 1 year after the Nexus event, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Alliance had changed. Where once there had been rigid segregation between species, now the room featured integrated seating areas designed to encourage interaction. And at the center of it all stood a stunning holographic display showing the dance of a void storm, not as a threat, but as an object of study and wonder. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her silver hair catching the light from the swirling visualization. Behind her sat representatives from both the Alliance and Earth, together rather than divided. Dr. Maya Patil and her team occupied a section nearby, their neural interfaces glowing softly as they monitored the ongoing void storm research. 1 year ago, Sarah began, we faced what seemed to be an insurmountable crisis. Today, we're here to formally dissolve the containment field around Earth, not because we demanded it, but because together we found a better way forward. High Counselor Zexivith's plasma form showed patterns of agreement. The containment was born of fear. We feared humanity's speed of advancement, your willingness to ignore conventions, your tendency to disturb established systems. All valid concerns, Sarah acknowledged. We do change things. It's in our nature. But what we've all learned, is that change isn't always a threat. The holographic display shifted to show the new joint research stations positioned along the void storm corridors. Alliance and human scientists worked side by side, studying the phenomena that had once threatened to destroy them. The void storms taught us something profound. Maya added, standing to join Sarah. They weren't a force to be contained or destroyed. They were a challenge to be understood, a puzzle that required us to think differently. Much like humanity itself, Kiravash observed, her bioluminescence showing patterns of amusement. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement and even some laughter, a sound that would have been unthinkable in these halls a year ago. But this isn't just about void storms, Sarah continued. What we've achieved together goes far beyond that. The quantum communication networks we developed, they're already revolutionizing interspecies dialogue. The Helios Array, it's providing clean energy to developing worlds across 3 sectors. And most importantly, Maya added, we're learning from each other. Alliance protocols are helping us refine our more experimental approaches, while our adaptive strategies are helping the Alliance respond more quickly to new challenges. The holographic display shifted again, showing a new project taking shape in deep space, a massive structure unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. This is the Convergence Initiative, Sarah explained, a joint human alliance research facility dedicated to studying not just void storms, but all the mysteries our galaxy has to offer. A place where the wisdom of the Alliance meets human innovation, where we can push boundaries safely, explore possibilities together, and break a few rules. Zexivith asked, his plasma form showing what had become a familiar pattern of resigned amusement. Only the ones that need breaking, Sarah replied with a smile. With proper documentation and safety protocols, of course. The chamber filled with more laughter. The fear that had once divided them had been replaced by something else. Understanding. Not just of each other, but of their own strengths and weaknesses. The containment field goes down today, Maya said. But something far more important is going up in its place. Bridges. Between species, between methodologies, between ways of thinking. And what of the next crisis? Someone called from the chamber. The next impossible challenge. Sarah's smile widened. That's the best part. We'll face it together. The Alliance's stability and wisdom, humanity's adaptability and innovation. Not fighting each other, but complementing each other. The holographic void storm pulsed one final time before fading, replaced by a real-time view of Earth's solar system. The containment field was visible as a faint shimmer in space. For the moment. 10 years ago, we stood in this chamber and heard humanity called a threat to galactic stability, Sarah said. Today, we stand here as partners in the greatest period of scientific and cultural advancement the Alliance has ever seen. Maya stepped forward, and we're just getting started. As the chamber erupted in applause, the containment field began to fade. But unlike 10 years ago, no ships rushed to leave Earth's solar system. Instead, vessels from across the galaxy were already queuing to enter, carrying scientists, diplomats, and explorers eager to be part of what was coming next. The Alliance had tried to contain humanity's chaos. Instead, they had given humanity the time and space to prove that sometimes chaos was exactly what the universe needed, as long as it came with a healthy dose of determination